Hello everyone, I'm here again in my backyard and I have a story. I've chosen a story today, or it's a parable, or two parables that are from the New Testament. So we've moved from telling you some Old Testament stories about Abraham and Sarah, the Abraham and Sarah saga, to telling you, today I've chosen to tell you a story from the Gospel of Matthew, which is the first book in the New Testament. And if you remember, Matthew was a tax collector before he became a disciple, and so wasn't looked on. He was unpopular amongst the people because he was collecting their money, and so perhaps seen as being greedy, maybe. But he became a disciple of Jesus, and after Jesus died, he wrote the book of Matthew a number of years later, which shared the stories of Jesus' teachings. So he rewrote what he learned from Jesus. And so today, the story that is shared is a parable, which is what Jesus did as a way to help people understand his teaching, give them clues to what Jesus meant when he was, in this case, showing them how shalom, peace and harmony, can spread and grow in the world. And so today's parables there's two of them, they're very short, and one is called the parable of the mustard seed, and the other is called the parable of the leaven, or parable of the yeast. And so seeds and yeast are the two things that Jesus has used as an example of the way God's love, the peace and harmony, God's shalom, can spread throughout the world. And it also tells us that even the smallest of things can help this peace and harmony, this shalom, spread throughout the world. And in the parable of the mustard seed, if you know what a mustard seed looks like, have you guys ever seen a mustard seed? It's very small. You've all seen seeds that are very small. We've planted seeds in pots in Sunday school for sure. We planted seeds when we grew our butterfly garden, so that's a good example of the way God's love, the feeling of peace and harmony, can spread in the world. These are mustard seeds. Can you see them? They're pretty small. And coincidentally, the yeast that we use to make bread these days is also, they're little grains that are quite small. Can you see those? Hopefully it's not blurry. So those are the two parables, and also in some books in the Bible they talk about the parable of the leaven, which is kind of similar to yeast, but the yeast that we use mostly these days, the commercial yeast that we use is like this, but the yeast that was used in Jesus' time was called leaven, and it's funny because over the time of since we've been experiencing COVID-19 and its effect on our world, a lot of people have been spending a lot more time at home, and a lot of people have started to use that leaven again, including me. So I've really enjoyed exploring that process of using that yeast that is similar. It's like a wild yeast that grows in flour and water. Here I have an example. This is an example. I've got this elastic here this is the leaven in here, and it's going to double in size, and then I am going to make buns for my dad and for my family for supper for tomorrow using this leaven. If I had known ahead of time that we were going to be doing this parable, I didn't look it up ahead of time, I would have made some bread, showed you how to make bread using leaven. But today I'm going to kind of give you a small example of how you could make bread using yeast, and how yeast grows from those small grains into something much larger. And as well, and the mustard seed does the same thing. So I'm going to share those two parables with you now and give you some examples, some visual images of how small things can grow into bigger things. So here we go. The parable of the mustard seed, from Matthew 13, verses 31 to 32. Jesus told another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like this. A man takes a mustard seed and sows it in his field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but when it grows up, it is the biggest of all plants. It becomes a tree so that birds come and make their nests in its branches. And the parable of the yeast comes from Matthew 13, verse 33. Jesus told them still another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like this. A woman takes some yeast and mixes it with a bushel of flour until the whole batch of dough rises. So Jesus shared these parables with the disciples and with the crowds that he spoke to so that they could understand how the love that was within them could transform communities, could have an effect on communities, and that no matter how small or how young you are, God's love can grow through you in surprising ways. It's pretty exciting. God's love is more valuable than treasure chests full of gold. Think about that. How can you have an effect on your community in a positive way? What good things can you do? I know that you all do good things. Just think about what you do and what more you could do as you grow up. It's pretty exciting. All right. Well, have a good week, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.